Before I get into the topic of today's video, I want to start off by saying rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. He was a phenomenal actor and had an amazing performance in a film that really means a lot to me. Not just because of what it's about, but because of when I was watching it. At the time of me seeing that first Black Panther movie, I was in middle school. And I don't exactly remember the date, but watching that movie with my two closest friends at the time really stuck with me. Seeing a superhero on screen that looked like me, and not only that, but it being a movie that took place in Africa. And everywhere I went after seeing that movie, people going, Wakanda forever! And for me, there's aspects of that film that you appreciate more as time passes. For example, how you can almost understand why Killmonger feels the way he does and how he views Wakanda. And T'Challa also understanding this, and we see the conflict he has when speaking to his father in the ancestral plane about how he was wrong for abandoning Killmonger as a child, and how Wakanda's been turning their back on the world for years. This was, and it is, a beautiful film, and it was truly amazing to see Chadwick Boseman play this role. Not too long after his passing, I would see a lot of comments discussing whether Black Panther should be recasted or if they should just stop making Black Panther movies altogether. And honestly, I didn't really have the right answer. I had a lot of different opinions and views on how they should carry out certain things, but I didn't really have like a set in stone answer, because regardless of what they do, it's going to be hard to please everybody. Even now, after the films come out, I've heard a lot of good things and I've heard a lot of bad things, and I've seen the movie twice and I honestly really enjoyed the film. I feel, in my opinion, they respected the passing of Chadwick Boseman in a really respectful way. The movie starts off with Shuri praying about how if her brother is healed, she will never question the existence of a god or a higher being ever again. She begins rushing into her lab to create a cure alongside the other scientists before she kicks them out, so she has time to think and try to come up with a solution herself to heal King T'Challa before it's too late. And then we see the Queen come out of the room to tell Shuri about the news of King T'Challa's passing from an undisclosed illness. When I saw this, I don't know why, but I found myself really surprised that this movie started out like that. And I was really invested to see what happens next, seeing everyone's reactions and where they go from here. The next scene is the funeral, and we see Shuri breaking down into tears, hugging the casket before it's taken away. The very beginning of this film was already really tugging at the heartstrings. You can kind of feel the energy in the theater while everything is happening. In a scene that takes place 1 year later, we see the Queen is in court in America to have a discussion about vibranium, because obviously outsiders want it. They've attempted stealing vibranium, which ultimately failed, of course. And the Queen lets the court know the reason Wakanda keeps vibranium to themselves is because they know a lot of people aren't going to use it for the best interest of the people. They're not going to use it to protect but hurt others. And she mentions how Wakanda has lost T'Challa and how they are not only mourning that loss, but now Wakanda doesn't have it protected. But the Queen reassured everyone in the court that if they try to steal the resources again, it will be seen as an act of regression and they will slide. You know what I'm saying? They're not playing about that. We're soon introduced to an underwater race called the Talakonians, and they're responsible for many deaths upon scientists that have been happening recently. And because the outside world doesn't know they exist, they assume Wakanda is to blame. Eventually, Queen Ramonda and Shuri are introduced to Kukulkan. I probably butchered that. Also known as Namor, who was the king of Talakon, and he threatens to go to war with the scientist who created the vibranium detector, which put Namor and his people at risk of exposure isn't brought to him to be killed. This person is Riri Williams, who I'll be talking more about shortly. Shuri and Okoye go to retrieve Riri Williams, and the people of Talakon attack them, and not only take Riri Williams, but Shuri willingly goes to Talakon to speak to Namor. And the scenery in Talakon is nothing short of beautiful, bro. It has some of the most pure music playing in the background that made you feel like you were ascending to another. I don't even know how to explain it. It was just amazing. And Namor explains to Shuri that he wants to go to war against the outside world and brings up how before he introduced himself to Shuri and the Queen, Shuri mentioned wanting to burn the world when speaking about the passing of her brother. So I assume Namor thought that she would be more willing to join him than anybody. Shuri, of course, declines, but this movie does a great job at making you understand the character of Namor, similar to how they made you feel for Killmonger in the first Black Panther movie. We find out Namor has wings on his feet and ears that point to the sky because he's a mutant. I really like how they're slowly introducing mutants into the universe. We had Miss Marvel, Professor Charles Xavier, hints at Wolverine, and now Namor. But getting back to what I was saying, you see how much he cares for his people and doesn't want the outside world to harm them. So he wants to wage war on them first. His first time seeing humans on the surface as a young boy, they were enslaved, and he killed everybody there and got the name of Namor, meaning a boy without love, by one of the many killed. We're introduced to Riri Williams, as I mentioned earlier, because of the vibranium detector she created. But as the FBI is surrounding the garage she does all her work in, we learn that she had an unfinished Iron Man-inspired suit created. Which allowed her to fly and shoot energy beams, you know, the usual Iron Man stuff. And her and Shuri are ultimately captured by Namor's people, as I mentioned earlier, but then are rescued by Nakia and are taken to Wakanda to be kept safe from Namor, but he eventually attacks as expected, and the Queen dies. But even though she died heroically. She died trying to save Riri Williams from drowning. And Namor says to Shuri in the most villainous way possible, "You are the Queen now." He just leaves. Anyways, Riri fell in debt to the Queen and is willing to help Shuri do anything she can to stop Namor. She had a pretty decent role in the movie. That kind of reminded me of Spider-Man when he first got introduced to the MCU during Captain America Civil War. He gets brought in to help fight, and then we get a bunch of Spider-Man movies after. But here she's brought to be kept safe, then fight, and then be brought home, and then is getting her own show. She actually ends up getting a new suit before the final fight, which looks good, but kind of like a Power Ranger suit toy thing you'd find in Walmart, if I'm being honest. Towards the end of the movie, Shuri is understandably mad and grieving her mother's death, but more than anything, she wants revenge. She perfects the artificial, heart-shaped herb, gains the Black Panther's power, but goes to the ancestral realm. And she doesn't see her mother, she doesn't see her brother, but she sees her cousin Killmonger. And when I say bro was on menace timing, he was on menace timing. Shuri wakes up and doesn't tell anyone that it was Killmonger that she saw on the ancestral plane. And Wakanda and the Talconians end up going to war. Shuri ends up capturing Namor, but of course, you can't capture Namor. This is the main villain. You can't capture him. At least not that easy. And they end up crashing into the desert, and they have a pretty cool battle. Shuri wins, but doesn't kill, of course. And this scene actually reminded me a lot of Spider-Man No Way Home, how Peter was blinded by hatred that he felt for the Green Goblin after killing his Aunt May. Except Peter wasn't the one that stopped himself. The other Peter did. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And now in this movie, Shuri has a vision of some sort of her mother saying, "Show him who you are." And Shuri tells Namor to yield and that Wakanda will keep their people a secret. The war ends, but of course, even in defeat, Namor's Loki's still plotting. Loki's still plotting on the world. It's implied that M'Baku becomes king and Shuri goes to stay with Nakia. And we have an amazing plot twist. We're introduced to her son, which of course is T'Challa's son. And what I love about this is that it does a lot of things and explains that they've been keeping the son a secret because they didn't want him to be involved in everything that's going on in Wakanda and just wanted him to have a normal life. It shows Shuri that she still has family, and the child's name is T'Challa. And this move, in my opinion, was way smarter than simply recasting T'Challa. In this way, his son can grow up and become the next King T'Challa instead of actually recasting the previous King T'Challa. This movie was a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman and overall an amazing film, and I'm excited to see where they go from here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.